Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Now, as global powers gather in Washington this week to shape Ukraine's security, Poland, one of Kyiv's staunchest allies, was notably missing from the room. Despite its rising defense cloud, its president's close ties to the Trump administration, Warsaw was left off the invite list. What happened and what does it say about Poland's standing in Western diplomacy? Joining us today on TVP World to break this all down is Wojciech Przybylski, Editor-in-Chief of Visegrad Insight, a leading voice on Central European politics and foreign policy. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Now, the big question is, what exactly happened? I mean, Poland traditionally is seen as one of the strongest allies of Ukraine, and when it comes to this high-level discussion, somehow, well, not invited to the party.
I don't know if this was uninvited to the party or is simply accommodating the president, new president. There is a transition, and the new president has just been sworn in. He's new to politics. He hasn't been in a political position before. And it is quite likely that he missed the opportunity to try and be there. And later he explained that he would go on the invitation of Donald Trump to the White House on the 3rd of September. So in a way, he probably did not understand the importance of the meeting. And that's probably the simplest story as it goes. I mean, others may allude to the perfect, numerical number, the biblical 7 of European leaders who are sitting around the table. Karol Nawrocki, coming from a also, deeply religious background, I think he would maybe leave it in the hands of God.
Well, there's a lot of reading into the tea leaves here, right? And, well, a lot of speculation is also on whether or not that means the European Union is not taking Poland seriously as a partner when it comes to this discussion, or there's also speculations about perhaps Zelensky being the one that haven't really officially invited Poland. So, in your belief, is it more of a procedural issue?
Whatever the issue is, there are substantial potential gains, or it might be even fortunate that Poland wasn't there. On the gains, on the diplomatic gains, Poland wasn't there, and obviously it feels like it's missing out because it was such a staunch and is such a staunch ally of Ukraine. But it's not there, and it did not have to commit additional billions of euro, while those countries who are standing out and missing out still per capita in their contribution to Ukrainian success had declared that they would contribute to buying American defense armory and supply them to Ukraine. It's a major achievement for Poland. Regardless if we've been there or not, because this has been the line of foreign policy that Polish government has been pushing for quite some time already. So that's one, without us being in the room. And the second one is that we'll see how the deal goes. Right. And so far, we see there was a lot of cheering up for Donald. Europeans have outbid Mr. Putin in basically all the warm words of grandiose, how big Donald Trump is of a leader, of a peacemaker, statesman. And all of that will only play out, we'll see the results when the meeting between Zelensky and Putin takes place. At the same time, White House has legitimized to a certain extent Putin's narrative on Friday, and it didn't look good. It didn't look like we should be in the picture. And of course, Poland has been preparing this weekend's diplomatic offensive. Both Mr. Nawrocki, President of Poland, and Mr. Sikorski has been present and coordinating with European leaders, with Donald Trump ahead of these meetings. So Poland is at the table, but we were, I think, all appalled at the type of welcome Mr. Putin has received. And there are different games. United States have the political capital to spend on welcoming such a murderous, bloody dictator. Poland does not. We have to stand firm on the grounds of international law and obligations that come with the international criminal tribunal, for instance, that wants Putin arrested. And we cannot signal in any way that we would see talks with Putin to compromise our foundations of our own very, very security in the case of Poland. So that argument I'm trying. I don't say that I'm fully convinced. There is a missed opportunity for sure, but it's not like end of the world for Polish diplomacy in this case.
And it's actually a very interesting way to look at it. And it's like Poland have been already supporting Ukraine to this extent and also meeting the spending standard that Washington is required of other countries, almost as if, we've already accumulated enough points that we can be exempted from the first exam. And now, going into this meeting that have been taking place, though, a lot of talks are on this coalition of dwelling, being able to come up with some sort of security guarantee for Ukraine. Seeing that Poland has been next to Ukraine, shares such a vast border, and have been such a strong supporter of Ukraine, do you think that leaving Poland out at the table would create a gap when it comes to actually discussing something more substantial, something more kind of practical for Ukrainians' defense going forward?
No, I think Poland not being at this very table does not leave out Poland's strategic position geographically. We're located where things matter. Like Finland, like the Baltics, we border with Russia and we border with Belarus, defending NATO from the incursions. We also have troops that are critical at these borders in the eve of the Zapad exercises, the military exercises planned for this autumn between Belarus and Russia, with high stakes involved. And definitely we do not wish for it, but we are planning for contingency should these exercises wanted to be turning into something else. So we need to be prepared. Poland is playing a critical part in making sure that, for instance, Suwałki Gap is protected. It's delivering security on the grounds. So for all of the alliance, all of the NATO members, this is a critical role of Poland, both territorially but also increasing army. And I think this will be confirmed again in Washington when we have President Nawrocki visiting Donald Trump in the beginning of September. But we will have it over numerous visits and meetings between the government officials in Europe. And when Polish voice is basically selling the message, and we have set up the message and convinced a number of European leaders that this is the right path, and we need to continue doing that job.
And so I'm curious about the September 3rd meeting that is coming up. I think that, like mentioned, will be very pivotal indeed with Poland's input. What do you think the first round will look like, and what do you think the Polish president will be able to bring onto the table, especially, as you mentioned, being a politician that's relatively new to these type of negotiations?
I mean, Polish politicians are worried that Mr. Nawrocki, who obviously has the ear of Donald Trump, does not have the diplomatic experience. From what we know, he's been a bit too... He was preaching to Donald Trump during the last online meeting, and that the type of messaging about what Donald Trump should or shouldn't do, while he already has made up his mind and he's got a plan to implement, that is something Polish president needs to be very, very careful about. So I hope the president drops his academic and historian background in telling the right message and becomes a politician serving our people and the interests of Poland, which is to maintain good relations with the United States in this strategic pivotal moment about the peace negotiations. So I think this is going to be the main message. This is going to be the important part of the conversation. Second to that, and I think that is easier to sell, is Polish economy, Polish robust growth and prosperity that American companies are also benefiting from. So we will have a number of talks, I'm sure, where Poland as an economic leader, not just the military backbone of eastern flank of NATO, will be presented and will be explained by Mr. Nawrocki as the country worth investing in. And unfortunately, I think, for the rest of Europe as well, it's going to be also a bit of a MAGA narrative, partly highly ideological, polarizing language that we may hear at the conference. That is the expectation. We know that Mr. Nawrocki campaigned on the ticket. This is how he got connected to Donald Trump with help of Mr. Orban, how they battle against the Democrats, the liberals, and so on. So I expect also part of this messaging to be very present at the meeting, in the room and at the press conference.
And speaking of Orban, there's a very interesting development very recently where European leaders urged Trump to, persuade Orban when it comes to Ukraine's EU accession, and he actually gave him a call asking why he's been blocking Ukraine's accession into the EU. How do you read this development? What does that say about Washington's positioning when it comes to European diplomacy?
Well, I think it shows to what effect, to what efficiency we can bring European diplomacy when we act together. And there were 7 leaders who basically asked Donald Trump to do this as part of a solution for European peace. Yeah. And he made a phone call to someone who definitely felt like backstabbing when Donald Trump asks Viktor Orban to reverse 180 degrees his policy on Ukraine and to say, well, yeah, they should be welcome in the EU. Let's do enlargement. This is exactly the opposite of the current Hungarian position. And what I can say is that Europe can do, when it wants, much, much more than it does already. That was a prime example of that.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for breaking all of this down. Really appreciate the input and insight. Thanks for being with us here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.